Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Wujaha and today we're going to go back to the fundamentals. We're going to cover something that's really important in the world of DeFi, especially if you're a yield farmer, and that is impermanent loss. Now, it's something that I don't think people explain very well. I don't think it's taught very well either, and I think hopefully today I can kind of just break it down so you can understand it better, because it's really important when you're providing liquidity on some of our favorite decentralized applications. So as always, let's get straight to it. Now, the first thing to understand is that impermanent loss isn't actually a loss of money or a loss of funds. Rather, it's a reflection of the net profit or loss from a particular pool. Now, I think the best way to kind of appreciate this is to kind of look at some pools yourself. So, what I wanted to show you is, I've just gone onto SushiSwap over here, and these are kind of your stereotypical, your typical liquidity pools that you can provide your two assets for. Now, normally these assets, like let's take the first one for example, you've got USDC and wrapped Ethereum, and essentially when you provide liquidity for this pool, you're going to provide an equal amount of Ethereum and an equal amount of USDC in a 50-50 ratio. And when you do that, people can obviously trade against this pair. That's going to provide some trading fees, and that's where this kind of APR comes from. And on top of that, sometimes they can give you rewards in the Sushi token, which is a nice bonus. And you can see with this particular pool, it's offering around 12%. Now, remember that the first thing when you provide liquidity is you have to make sure that you provide both of these assets. So, let's say you had only one Ethereum to begin with. Well, you're going to first of all have to sell half of that into USDC so that you can provide liquidity. So just bear that in mind, because you do have to split your assets into two if you've only got one of them. So when you provide liquidity, like I mentioned, you're going to click on this, and you're just going to add an equal amount of both. So let's say we had 0.5 Ethereum. That's about $1,300, and we'd also have to include about $1,300 worth of USDC as well. And then you can click provide, and your pool will be there generating you some nice passive income. Now, this pool, this $1,300 on both sides, it has to always be balanced. It always has to be at a 50% ratio. So, let's say if Ethereum somehow magically doubled in price overnight, well, the protocol will automatically sell off some of that Ethereum into USDC so that it's always balanced, always 50%. And you can kind of begin to appreciate how you can get some level of opportunity cost here because of this mechanism. I think one way to kind of appreciate this is to go and have a look at this chart over here. So this chart shows us the losses to liquidity pool due to price variation. And generally when you provide liquidity, you're going to have 100% of the holding. So we're going to be right at this point here, exactly 0%. We're going to have no loss at all. You can see that if the prices of these assets change slightly, plus 10%, minus 10%, it doesn't really change the impermanent loss so much. It's only when we go to extremes of prices. So if Ethereum somehow dropped, minus, 80% in value, or if Ethereum somehow did a 500% or 400% gain in value, that we really notice the impermanent loss here. And the best way to really figure this out yourself is to go to an impermanent loss calculator, and Daily DeFi have a really nice one here, and you can kind of plug in numbers here yourself. So let's take this example over here with this USDC wrapped Ethereum, and we'll take USDC's price as 1, and obviously in the future it should hopefully be $1 as well, and token B is Ethereum's price, which at the moment is $2,600. Okay. Now in the future, if token B also remains at 2,600, well, your impermanent loss is 0%. Yeah, you haven't lost any money. Now, what if Ethereum slightly increased to 3,000%? Well, you can see that now we've got a slight impermanent loss. In reality, we haven't actually lost money, we've made money here, but had we have just held these assets, token A and token B originally, we would have made 0.26% more. And that's because of this constant rebalance that has to happen in the pool. And you can see if you scroll down here, if you had $500 of USDC and $500 of Ethereum, it would be worth this much if you had just held it and appreciated that gain from Ethereum. However, if you provided liquidity, because of the rebalancing, it would have provided a slight opportunity cost compared to just holding. And that kind of makes sense here because, this is only really, a 10-20% gain. And you can see that over here, if we go from 100% to 110 or 120%, it's not really much of a loss there at all. It's only when we increase prices, increase the appreciation, of the asset, that we really notice the gain or the loss, I should say. And let's appreciate that in this calculator here. What if Ethereum somehow went to $10,000? Well, you can see here now we've got an impermanent loss of 20% almost, or 19%. You can see if we just held the tokens originally, it would be worth $2,400. So if we just held, that USDC and Ethereum, it would be worth $2,400. But if we provided liquidity, I got confused because it's only $500 of each. Yeah, so we've had $500 of USDC and $500 of Ethereum. It'd be worth $2,400. However, when Ethereum goes to $10,000, well, you can see here, look at that. We've actually made quite a big loss here compared to if we just held. Now, of course, we still made profit because this is only $500 of each. So you did actually double your money, but had you just held those two assets, you would have made even more. Now, the other thing is, imagine if you didn't have the USDC. Well, you would have double the exposure to your Ethereum then, and as a result, you would make a lot more. So these are really important things to take into consideration when you are providing liquidity. Now, it gets way more complicated when you provide liquidity for two volatile assets. And if we go down here a bit, we can see that there's a pool here for wrapped Bitcoin and wrapped Ethereum. And for some people, they may think, oh, I'm bullish on both tokens, why don't I provide liquidity for both? Well, now you've got a second variable to consider. And if Bitcoin is $40,000 and in the future it stays up, maybe it goes to $50,000. Whoops. You can see here that these are impermanent losses that you will have to consider. Even though both your Bitcoin went up and your Ethereum went up, had you just held the asset itself, you would have made 13% more. Now, what you have to kind of consider is the trade-off worth it? Because at times, some impermanent loss is actually fine. You can handle it. If it's less than 10%, but your farm is giving you 100%, well, it makes sense because as a net, you're going to make profit. And you have to go and look at your farms and see kind of how much annualized return are you getting from that farm. So look, you're only getting 2.78% for this particular pool of wrapped Bitcoin and to wrapped Ethereum. So really, you're better off holding your assets here if you think both are going to go up. Ultimately, it depends on how much they're going to go up as well. If you only think Ethereum is going to go up to 3,000, well then look at your impermanent loss, it's next to nothing there. And then it makes sense to kind of provide liquidity for that pairing. So that's essentially how it works. Have a look at this graph. You can find it by just Googling, impermanent loss graph or chart, and you should get something like this. Play around with the calculator and then see whether or not your farms are worth providing liquidity for or not. A lot of them you'll find aren't, but you really have to take into consideration whether or not the rewards, some rewards are going to be 30% like this one, 25%, 50%. For those ones, it might be worth it. But then you have to also take into consideration that the price of those assets that you're providing liquidity for can change drastically. And if we go back to this, if they do change drastically to one extreme or the other, even if your assets go up 4x or 5x, oh, you're going to make a hefty impermanent loss there. So take that into consideration when you provide liquidity. It is really important. Play around with those calculators, and hopefully that gives you a better understanding of how it works and how your positions can change. So that's what I've got for you today. Let me know if any of that made sense. If it doesn't make sense, drop me a message. I can go into way more detail and explain that better, hopefully. That's what I've got for you today. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back with another video soon.